Hey everyone, welcome back to NRI Wiz. Before we dive into today's video, let me tell you something that might shock you. Last month I spoke to an NRI who lost 15 lakh rupees while buying a property in India just because he didn't know one simple rule. He bought a beautiful apartment in Bengaluru, spent 2 years paying for it, and then discovered that he couldn't legally own it. That means all that money, all that effort completely wasted. And the worst part, this happens more often than you think. So if you're an NRI thinking about buying a property in India, whether it's for your investment or for your parents or for your retirement, whatever, I promise this video is going to save you from making those expensive mistakes. I'm going to walk you through everything step by step in the simplest way possible. No complicated legal terms, no confusing banking jargons, just practical real advice that you could actually use. Now here's the thing. Most videos on this topic either give you surface level information or they throw so much legal language at you that you get confused more than when you started. So by the end of this video, you will know exactly what you can buy, what you can't buy, how to pay for it, what documents do you need, and most importantly, how to avoid the traps that catch so many NRIs. So let's start by understanding that what you can actually buy. The first thing you need to understand is this. As an NRI, you can't buy just anything in India. There are very specific rules around what type of property you are actually allowed to own. And these rules exist under something called as FEMA. Now FEMA stands for Foreign Exchange Management Act. All you need to remember is that FEMA is those set of rules that controls how NRIs can invest in India. So here is what you can buy. You can buy as many residential properties as you want. So if you have the money and you want to buy 10 apartments in 10 different cities, go for it. Nobody's going to stop you. Moreover, you can also buy commercial properties. That means office spaces, shops, showrooms, warehouses, precisely anything that is used for business. Again, there is no limit on how many you can buy. Now here comes the important part. Here is what you cannot buy. As NRIs, you cannot buy agriculture land. You cannot buy plantation property. Also, you can't buy farmhouses. Let me repeat that because this is where so many NRIs make mistakes. So no agricultural land, no plantation, no farmhouses. It doesn't matter if you were born in that village. It doesn't matter if your grandfather owned that land. And it doesn't matter if you have any emotional attachment to that property. If the property is classified as an agricultural land or plantation or a farmhouse, you're simply not allowed to buy it as an NRI. Now I know what you're thinking. What if I really want that ancestral farmhouse? What if I want to buy agricultural land for investment? Well, there is only one way. You will have to give up your NRI status and become a resident Indian again. That means you move back, stay in India for more than 182 days in that particular financial year, and then you can buy an agricultural land. But as long as you are technically classified as an NRI, it's not allowed. There is one exemption though. If you inherit agricultural land or farmhouse from your parents or relatives, then you can keep it. Remember, you just cannot buy it yourself. And if you inherit it and want to sell it later, you can only sell it to an Indian resident, not to an NRI. Now you might be wondering, why are these restrictions there for NRIs? See, the Indian government wants to make sure that any agricultural land or farmhouses belong to people who actually live in India and farm those lands. They don't want foreign-based investors speculating on agriculture properties. So it kind of makes sense when you think about it. So to summarize this part, residential properties, absolutely yes. You can buy as many as you want. Commercial properties, yes, again, no restrictions. And agricultural land, plantation or farmhouses, completely off limits if you're an NRI unless you inherit them. Now the next thing that comes to our mind as NRIs is that, okay, if you buy the properties now, how do you pay for it? Alright, now you know what you can buy. The next question is, how do you actually pay for it? And this is very important because if you end up paying the wrong way, the transaction can become illegal. Every single rupee that you pay for that property you're buying as NRI must go through proper banking channels in India. You cannot simply bring cash from abroad and give it to the seller. Moreover, remember, you cannot use someone else's account too. So everything has to be traceable. It has to go through your bank accounts in India. So yes, you need to have the right bank account in India as NRIs. As an NRI, you should either have an NRE account, that is non-resident external account, or a NRO account, that stands for non-resident ordinary account. In case you're aware of these terms, well and good. But in case if you're not, don't worry, I'll try and explain it in very easy and simple language. An NRE account, which stands for non-resident external account, this is where you keep your money that you earn abroad. So your salary comes from US, UK, Dubai, Singapore, wherever you work. So that money can come to your NRE account. The big advantage of opening an NRE account is that money is completely tax-free in India. And if you ever want to take that money abroad or repatriate, you can do it freely without any restrictions. An NRO account, on the other hand, stands for non-resident ordinary account. So this is where you keep any money that you earn in India. So if you receive any rental income from a property in India, or you have fixed deposits in India, or let's say you run any businesses in India and you receive your business income there. So basically any money that you're making in India has to come into your NRO account, not NRE account. So remember that, don't get confused. Now the key difference here is that any money in your NRO account is taxable in India. And if you want to send money from your NRO account abroad, there are some restriction limits. Let's come back to the discussion of buying properties in India. So let's say you're buying property in India. So which account can you use to buy the property? The good news is that you can use any account, that is NRI or NRO account, to buy a property in India. There are no restrictions on that. So if you're using your savings from abroad to buy the property, you can transfer that money to your NRI account first and then pay from there. Similarly, if you're using your income earned in India, then use your NRO account. Both are completely fine. Now here is something really important. When you make the payment, it should go directly from your account to the seller's account. So don't give cash, don't use your friend's account. So simple bank transfer, that's it. The reason is simple. When the registration happens, the authorities will check where that money came from. If they see a bank transfer from your NRI account, then everything is fine. And if they see something else, then you can have problems. And one more thing, if you are buying a property that costs more than 50 lakh rupees from a resident Indian seller, there is something called TDS. TDS stands for tax deducted at source. But don't let that confuse you. All it means is this. You need to deduct 1% of the property value and deposit it with income tax department on behalf of the seller. So let's say if you're buying a property for 1 crore rupees, you are responsible to deduct 1 lakh rupees and deposit it to the government. Then pay the remaining 99 lakh rupees to the seller. You will need to file something called as Form 26QB online to do this. And then give the seller a certificate called Form 16B as a proof. Any CA or property lawyer can help you with this. But wait, here is where it gets a bit different. If you are buying a property from another NRI, not a resident Indian, then rules completely change. In that case, the TDS is not 1%. It's actually 12.5% of the full sale price. Or it could be calculated on the capital gains depending on how long the NRI seller has held the property for. This is much higher and you'll need something called as a TAN, that stands for Tax Deduction Account Number. The forms are different too. You're required to file Form 26Q instead of Form 26QB. This is more complicated, so if you're buying from another NRI, definitely hire a CA or a tax consultant to handle this part. My personal recommendation is don't try to do it yourself. There's one good news though. If the NRI seller can show that their actual tax liability is much lower, they can apply for something called as a lower TDS certificate. This means instead of deducting 12.5%, you might actually need to deduct a much lower amount like a 5% or whatever the actual tax amount is. This kind of helps because the seller otherwise loses a lot of money upfront and has to wait for months to get tax refund. Now many of you might be thinking that I don't have the full amount in cash, so can I go for a loan? The answer is yes, absolutely. Most major Indian banks offer home loans to NRIs like ICICI, HDFC, SBI, Axis Bank. All of these banks have special NRI home loan schemes as well. Indian banks can typically give you a loan for up to 80 to 85% of the property value. So if you're buying a property worth 1 crore rupees, the bank might give you a loan of 80 to 85 lakhs and you will need to pay the remaining of 15 to 20 lakh rupees as down payment. But do remember the interest rates are slightly higher compared to resident Indians. The NRI home loan rates are somewhere between 7 to 9% depending on the bank and your profile. The loan tenure can go up to 30 years, which means you can spread out the repayment over a long period. Now to get a home loan, bank is going to look into a few things. You're expected to have a stable job and a regular income in the country where you're working. They will typically ask for last 3 to 6 months of your salary slips, your employee contracts, your bank statements showing your salary credits. If you're self-employed, they would want to see your business income, tax returns for the last 2 years. Second, they will look at your age. Most banks want you to be between 21 year to 60 or 65 year old. The idea is that you should be able to repay your loan before you retire. Third and most importantly, they will check your credit history. So if you're in the UK, US, Canada, UAE, Australia, or a few other countries, the bank will ask for your credit report from that country. This shows them if you have taken any loans before, if you repaid them on time, basically if you're financially responsible or not. Now here is something important. That means your NRI or NRO accounts. You cannot repay the loan directly from your foreign bank accounts. So every month you'll either need to keep money in your NRI or NRO accounts, or you can set up an automatic transfer from abroad to your NRI accounts as well. And then the EMI gets deducted from there. There's one more thing. Many banks prefer or require you to have a co-applicant who is a resident Indian. This could be your spouse if they live in India, or your parents, your sibling, anyone who is a resident. The co-applicant shares the responsibility of repaying the loan. Remember, this is not mandatory for all banks, but it definitely makes getting the loan a bit easier, and sometimes you get a better interest rate too. One good thing here is that you don't necessarily have to travel back to India to complete all your bank loan formalities. Everything can be done online. Most of these banks do have their foreign branches as well. For example, HDFC, ICICI, they have their foreign branches in the country of your residence as well. So you can also go in person, visit them, complete all the bank formalities directly with them. So you can submit all your documents online, get approvals online, and even sign the documents digitally. But for final registration, either you or your appointed power of attorney need to be present in India. Speaking of representatives, Let's talk about one of the most practical tools for NRIs buying properties in India. It's called power of attorney. When you buy a property in India, there are dozens of steps. You need to check documents, negotiate with the builder or the seller, visit the bank multiple times, go to the registration office, get a no objection certificate, handle society paperwork. And traditionally, you needed to be present physically for most of these things. But clearly, most NRIs don't have the time or money to keep flying back to India to complete these formalities. So, what's the solution then? Power of attorney. Now, let's talk documents. And I'm going to be straight with you. Missing even one document can delay your purchase by months or kill the deal entirely. So do pay attention here. You will need your valid passport, not just the photo but the visa pages too. Then you will need your PAN card. If you don't have one, you can apply online. It takes a few weeks. You will also need your address proofs both for your overseas address and your Indian address. And of course your OCI card. If you are taking a loan, the bank will want your last 3 to 6 months salary slips, your employment contracts, your foreign bank accounts showing your salary credits, and 2 years of tax returns from your country of residence. If you're self-employed, you can add your business registration documents, profit and loss statements, and balance sheets. Moreover, you'll also need your NRI bank account statements showing that you have enough funds, plus any remittance receipts if you're transferring funds from abroad. Now, the most important documents. This is exactly where NRIs get lazy and later regret it. Before you pay a single rupee, you need these 5 things verified. 1. The title deed. This proves ownership. Try and get the full ownership history going back at least 30 years. Second is encumbrance certificate. Think of this document as a property credit report. It shows if there are any loans or any legal cases attached to it. And if there are, simply walk away until they are cleared. Next is the property tax receipts, confirming that all the taxes, everything has been paid off till date. And number 4 is no objection or a NOC certificate from the housing society. Next comes the building approval plan, and if the property you are buying is a new project, check its RERA registration certificate as well. Personally, I would simply hire a property lawyer who specializes in these areas and ask them to check all the legalities before going ahead and paying a single penny for the property. So barring any holding deposit, try and avoid making any payments unless you get satisfactory responses from your property lawyers. Once they confirm that everything is legally okay, then proceed. My strong advice, hire a property lawyer and let them do all the heavy lifting for you. They would cost you not more than 15 to 20,000 to complete all these legal formalities for you, but trust me, it's definitely worth it. That money is nothing compared to what you could lose if you avoid this step. So once all your documents are in order, verified, and your money is also ready, you register the property. And here's something most people don't realize. Until you register, the property is not yours. Doesn't matter if you have signed the agreements, done the paperwork, or even paid the full amount. No registration means no ownership. You or your appointed power of attorney goes to the sub-registrar office, typically in the area where the property is located, and carry all your original documents in hand. At the office, you will pay stamp duty. Stamp duty cost varies by state, typically 5 to 7% of the property value, plus 1% as registration charges. So for a 1 crore property, you are typically looking at 6 to 8 lakhs just on these charges. This is not optional and it's not small. So please factor this in your budget from day one. Then both you and the seller sign the final sale deed in front of the registrar. Once it's registered, you receive the registered sale deed. This is the single most important document you will ever hold for this property. Keep multiple physical copies in safe place. Scan everything and store it in the cloud, because you will need this document every single time when you sell or take a home loan or pass it on to your children. So guard it like your life depends on it. So congratulations, now you are the legal owner. But your responsibilities doesn't stop here. There are still a few things you need to stay on top of. Every year, pay your property tax to the local municipal corporation. It's not a huge amount, but don't ignore it. Many NRIs I personally know, they skip it for years and then face a nightmare when they decide to sell. If it's an apartment, pay your society maintenance every month. If you're renting the property out, you must file income tax returns in India. Every year, and depending on your tax bracket, pay your tax on that rental income. You can deduct 30% as standard maintenance deduction, plus any property tax paid or any home loan interest that's applicable. But do file it every year without fail. The income tax department is now cross-checking all the rental data from tenants, banks, and property registrations. So if they catch you, the penalties are far worse than the tax you could have just honestly paid. And if you have a home loan, never miss an EMI. Keep your NRI account consistently funded, so the EMI deduction goes through every month without any problems. What about buying the property and then selling it later? See, life changes. Someday you might just decide to sell the property. So here is what you need to know. You can sell to any resident Indian or another NRI. The only restriction is that you cannot sell it to any foreign citizen who has no Indian connection. When you sell, any capital gain tax apply on any profits that you have made on that transaction. So if you sell the property within 2 years of buying, it's short-term capital gains tax at your income tax slab rate. And if you hold for more than 2 years, it's long term. So there are legal ways to reduce this tax, but for that you will need to speak to your chartered accountant who can advise you better. For example, if you reinvest the sale proceeds into buying another residential property in India, you can claim exemption under Section 54. Or even invest the gains into some specified bonds within 6 months under Section 54C. So my personal recommendation is talk to your CA before you decide to sell, because proper planning here can save you lakhs. There's one more thing on selling. The buyer will deduct the TDS from what they pay you. So it's going to be 1% if they are resident Indian and 12.5% if they are another NRI. This TDS amount gets deposited with the government. So when you file your tax return, if your actual tax is less than what was deducted, then you get a refund. And if you want to take that money back to your foreign country, you can, but under the FEMA rules, you can repatriate up to $1 million per financial year from your NRO account. For this, your CA needs to issue a certificate confirming all taxes paid, and you will need to fill forms something called as 15CA and 15CB. So plan ahead because this process takes a few weeks. So let me close this with the mistakes I see many NRIs make again and again. So always best to learn from others so you don't have to pay the price yourself. Don't buy from family or friends without any proper paperwork. I know it feels a bit unnecessary when it's someone you trust, but do it anyways always. Number 2, don't skip title verification. Hire that property lawyer. Spending 20,000 on a good property lawyer can save you losing 20 lakh rupees. Number 3, try and avoid buying under construction property unless you are really confident about the builder, about the project, and about everything about that project. Especially all the RERA documents are in order. If you still decide to go ahead and buy that under construction property, again hire the property lawyer, get all the RERA documents verified, make sure all the documents are in order, the title is clear, there are no active litigations, check the builder's track record, talk to the previous buyers. If you're 100% satisfied, only then go for under construction property. Don't keep all your original documents in the property. Keep them in a safe location, make photocopies, and most importantly, scan everything and back it up online. Also, don't give a general power of attorney when a special power of attorney can do. Be very specific about what that POA can do and what he can't do, and set a time limit on it. Don't forget to budget for extra costs. For example, stamp duty, registration, legal fees, GST on new properties. These costs can easily add up to 10 to 12% of the property price. So on 1 crore property purchase, that's like 10 to 12 lakh rupees. So always plan for it. Also, as I said earlier, don't skip filing tax return on rental income that you receive. It will catch up with you, and trust me, the penalties are not pretty. Another important point that not many NRIs pay attention to is that, don't leave the property unattended for many months or years. Either rent it out or have someone regularly clean, check, and maintain the property. Another important point is don't make any cash payments even if the seller offers you a discount for it. See, it's illegal, it's unprotected, and when you eventually decide to sell, you will end up paying higher capital gain tax because you can't prove the full purchase costs. So always use bank transfers. And finally, don't sign any document, any agreement without fully reading it. If you don't understand the legal jargons, terminologies, don't worry. As I said, hire a good property lawyer. They will do all the heavy lifting for you. Basically, never sign something that you don't understand. So that is the complete guide for you. So take your time, don't rush into any decisions, and hire professionals where needed. Property is one of the biggest investments of your life. So treat it with that seriousness. I hope you found this video useful and it helped you. So this is all I had for this video. I'll see you soon in another superb interesting video. Till then, you take good care of yourself. This is me, Pratik, signing off from NRI Wiz. Over and out.